Let's turn our attention to the war in the Middle East now. There's been a number of developments in the last 24 hours, and news broke this morning that the United States Navy has asked formally Australia to send one of our warships to the Red Sea. Now, this will be part of an expanded international task force. There's pirates operating in that area, and I think it's to keep shipping lanes open. Joining me now is Jack Keane, a retired four-star general who, of course, served as Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army. He's now chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General, great to see you again. We are a great ally of the United States. I expect there's going to be no drama, and we will provide that warship when asked.
Yes, well, what's happening here is the Houthi rebels, who are a proxy of the Iranians, have been firing at commercial shipping passing through largely the Red Sea, most of that shipping heading to Israel. So they're trying to disrupt the normal flow of goods into Israel. They've also fired on U.S. warships in the region as well. The United States is attempting to organize a multinational task force to help escort ships through. This is something we've done in the Persian Gulf a number of times before. I also think, though, that what is needed is more than that. The United States should respond, in my judgment, and conduct attacks on the Houthis themselves in terms of where their rocket and missile launchers are, their storage sites, and also their command and control. We've been reluctant to do that. We have not done it. We have defended ourselves against rocket and missile attacks, but we have not taken any offensive action. This is largely defensive as well. I believe the reason for that is the White House administration's fear that if they escalate to go after the Houthis who are shooting at us, that possibly could involve a confrontation with Iran. I think that's completely unfounded, and I think the administration is being far too weak in dealing with these attacks.
You're a great patriot. You've served your country with distinction. How disappointed were you yesterday in the United Nations? And it appears now that the US and Israel are growing increasingly isolated. You saw that vote in the General Assembly, voting in favour of a Gaza ceasefire. The US and Israel are among the few votes against. And disgracefully, in my view, Australia put its hand up and joined in that vote and voted in favour. What did you make of all of that?
Yeah, we're certainly very disappointed, not surprised by it. We know where the UN is on a lot of things. We know there's a significant anti-Israel body in the UN, and frankly speaking, an undercurrent of anti-Americanism in the UN itself. Look, Hamas conducted this butchery, savage attack, and it's diabolical and sinister what they wanted because they focused on a civilian population in Israel. Never have done that before. Took 240 casualties wholesale. Never did that before. Why? They wanted to make certain that Israel would come into the Gaza Strip, would attack them. They held many, many people in place in an urban center where in most wars that take place in urban centers, by the time the sound of the artillery guns or airstrikes get close, the people do what? They flee. World War II to the present, that's the pattern of behavior. But here in Gaza, they hold that population in place, and they are the government who is supposed to protect their own people. This is diabolical on their part. So what happens is we get disproportionate amount of civilian casualties that we should not have because those people are not permitted to leave. That is very frustrating to everybody. It's frustrating to Israeli soldiers who have to deal with this, to the Israeli military, and certainly it's horrific in what is happening to the innocent souls there who are suffering as a result of it. Hamas has the accountability and responsibility for doing this, not the Israelis.
As a military strategist, General, a ceasefire is it not going to allow Hamas to regroup, perhaps restock with weaponry? And it would be crazy of Israel to agree to do that without all of the hostages back, wouldn't it?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. And what they're really talking about is a permanent ceasefire. Look at The Israelis want to dismantle Hamas as a military and terrorist organization, and it's formidable. We're talking about 25, 30,000 people under arms here, 5 brigades, 24, 25 battalions as part of those brigades, 6 or 7,000 have been eliminated, but there's still a lot of work to be done to achieve that end. I mean, what the Israelis are trying to say is that, look, if we stop prematurely here, they've already said what they're going to do. Their political leadership in Qatar made the statement right on national televisions, international television, excuse me, saying that we fully intend to attack again and again and again until we destroy the state of Israel. What they mean by that is inflict so many casualties in Israel that people don't want to stay there anymore. That's what their intent is. A ceasefire caters to that. And they have the hostages, Steve, so they can get at least temporary ceasefires by giving hostages back. And we've seen that happen about 10 days ago. Permanent ceasefire keeps Hamas and the regime in power. And what are we going to see? More attacks in the future, more butchery, more savagery. Israel is not going to agree to that.
Jack, what's your fear of this spreading outside of Gaza and the conflict that's currently underway? And of course, I mean into places like Lebanon and, God forbid, Iran.
Yeah, well, I think what we have seen so far from the Hezbollah, they have been conducting measured, limited attacks, although increasing, into northern Israel. Artillery weapons, limited rocket attacks, mortars, and the like. What we have not seen, and they have not taken this action, is unleashing the 130,000 sophisticated rockets and missiles that they have that can reach any town or city in Israel. Their attacks so far have just been limited to the border, northern border area of Israel. That would be the expansion of the war. If that took place, Israel would conduct massive air attacks on the Hezbollah in Lebanon. If they were not able to achieve the objective of shutting it down and the casualties were still rising in the towns and cities in Israel because the Hezbollah is overwhelming their air defense systems, they would likely ask the United States for assistance in terms of using United States air power. For our audience to understand, Israel from 1948 to the present has never asked anybody to assist them in fighting a war against their adversaries. That would be unprecedented, but the United States would likely agree to that request, obviously, if the Israelis ask for it. In the future, as of right now, I don't see that happening. But as Hamas gets closer to being destroyed, the fact is Iran may tell the Hezbollah, go ahead and expand the war and bring it to the better part of Israel. That remains to be seen, but that certainly is a possibility.
Just before you go, General, I know you've spoken with Andrew before about the AUKUS deal, the deal between Australia, the US and the UK on nuclear submarines. I see that AUKUS plan has now passed the Senate and it's now going to go to the House. That's a good development, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a positive thing. I thought the AUKUS deal from the outset was creative and innovative and just absolutely the right thing to do. Listen, we have a major problem with President Xi and his aggressiveness in the region, his intimidation and coercion of the United States allies and partners, economic aggression with Australia, to be sure, potential military intimidation also. The fact that we're coming together as allies and partners to deter China from starting a war. That's the objective here. Put in front of them capabilities that they look at and see and say, that is too much cost for us to start a war in this region in our attempt to dominate and control it. That is the objective here, and this is an important step in terms of achieving that objective.
Always a great pleasure to catch up with you, General Jack Keane. Thanks very much for your time.
Great talking to you, Steve, for you and your audience. Thank you.